Before the myth of the American dream was conceived, the stories of American history featured the myth of the free yeoman farmers, who were a relatively affluent middle class in colonial America. How well did this claim align with historical facts? In his letters, George Washington not only did not hide the desperate situation of the army, but very often spoke of the difficult conditions of starvation, lack of clothing and shoes, and the following excerpt from a letter is just one of many.
For some days past, there has been little less than a famine in camp. A part of the army has been a week without any kind of flesh, and the rest 3 or 4 days. Naked and starving as they are, we cannot, admire the incomparable patience and fidelity of the soldiery, that they have not been, ere this, excited by their sufferings to a general mutiny and dispersion.
The hardships of war are, however, different from the belief about the social standard of colonial Americans. Inequalities were not the result of the war. They were preceding them. According to research by Jeffrey Williamson and Peter Lindert, in 1774, in the South, the occupations of household heads were connected to agriculture in as many as 72.7% of cases, while only 1.9% lived on manual labor or possessed no wealth. In the rest of colonial America, the situation was different. In New England, 43.9% of household heads were engaged in agriculture, while 28.4% were manual laborers or had no wealth. In the middle colonies, 25.8% were farmers, while 13% of household heads were manual laborers and had no wealth. Occupations by region in total are shown in the following table. Across the 13 colonies, the top 2% owned 19.6% of the total wealth, while the top 10% owned 50.7% of the total wealth. Nearly all of the social wealth was concentrated in the wealthiest 50%, who owned 93.3% of the total wealth. Such a distribution was not a new phenomenon of the late 18th century and the development of slavery. As early as 1687 in Boston, the richest 10% owned 46% of the wealth, and by 1771, they had increased their share to 63%. Therefore, behind the apparent equality, a slave system, land speculation, and the concentration of wealth in the trading cities were already developing rapidly. America, in its struggle against Britain, increasingly took on its likeness right after its liberation from its imperial rule. A deep structure was in place as a foundation for the concentration of wealth in the upper class of merchants and large landowners. Equality was a goal for some, but the reality was the unequal distribution of wealth and power.